This video was brought to you by the Frame Focus. With 16 threads, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and over 450 megabytes per second write speed, the Frame Focus makes video editing less painful than usual. Check out the link in the description, but before you do that, enjoy the video. When you make videos like mine, making a list of the top 10 Mario games is the equivalent of playing Hamlet in a play. Mario is, after all, the face of gaming, tracing back to 1981 with Donkey Kong, although it may have ended then if Nintendo didn't decide to tie Donkey Kong to Mario Brothers. The only rule I feel the need to implement is the way I will define a Mario game. The word Mario must be in the title. That means that Luigi's Mansion is ineligible, yet Mario is missing counts. It's not a perfect system, but it's best to sort out things such as Super Smash Bros. And SSX on tour. Everything else goes. Any game genre, any console.
Number 10.
We have a tie. Number 10 goes to two games that I couldn't bring to the chopping block. They are Paper Mario and Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. Paper Mario is the first Mario game where Bowser defeating Mario is part of the official story, which is pretty neat. The story doesn't really get any more complicated than that if you don't want it to be. I mean, all you really need to know is that Bowser's got a hold of this special object and you've got to collect things to help defeat that special object, defeat Bowser, and eventually rescue Peach. The game's simplicity is actually one of its most spectacular points. In a time when Morrowind was coming out next year, it was amazing what could be done with so little. The best part of Paper Mario is the final fight. You might think fighting Bowser yet another time would be boring, but the music tells you otherwise. It's you, your partner, and that lizard that defeated you a few days ago. There's also that side fight with Peach, Twink, and Cammy, but it happens so quickly that sometimes I forget it exists. It's a good thing because that's really linear and boring. Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga also has you control two party members, except you control the same ones the entire way through. Well, unless you count the time you play as Toad and catch Mario taking a shower. That's another thing. When people aren't praising the gameplay or the simplistic controls, they're referencing the humor. Mario and Luigi are pretty much more expressive in this game than every single game before combined, and it works for the better. You feel like you're controlling actual characters with ideas and fears rather than self-inserts. The three things both games have in common are that they're RPGs, they're simplistic, and they're definitely worth your time.
Number 9.
Imagine Mario in space. Now, I know what you're thinking.
Space game? What could they possibly do with that?
As it turns out, quite a lot. For example, gravity-based platforming. And you might think that the theming would get old, but they changed things enough to keep it fresh. The level designs are rarely reused, stupid Golden Leaf Galaxy, and the music is orchestrated bliss. Also, did I mention that the final boss is probably the best final boss in the entire Mario series? However, aside from the final boss and another thing, this game doesn't really have many memorable moments. If you factor in the fact that one of those levels is memorable because of how weird it is rather than how awesome it is, things don't bode so well for Super Mario Galaxy. But to end on a positive note, have you seen this game's graphics? Are we sure this doesn't count as HD? If this is what Nintendo can push out with the Wii, then the Wii U's potential is astronomical.
Number 8.
Mario Kart has many iterations. The best? Mario Kart Wii. Perhaps the most unique thing about the game in contrast from its predecessors is the inclusion of motorbikes, which while some people despise, I adore. The mini-turbo system has also been changed, so instead of rocking the controls back and forth constantly, the boost comes sooner with a sharper turn. It becomes a challenge of finding the instant you will be able to achieve this boost ability. That may be a bit esoteric, so how do practically the best motion controls and best online capabilities Nintendo has ever done sound? Good? Good. This game also did a really good job at revamping tracks from previous Mario Karts. Let's face it, in Mario Kart 64, the main battle arena always was Skyscraper, so why not implement trick abilities into it? Mario Kart 8 is a close second for the best Mario Kart game of all time because it provides general fixes not only to the formula found in Mario Kart Wii, but general mechanics in the Mario Kart series as a whole. But in the end, it's second to Mario Kart Wii because its character and course selection are both questionable. Oh, who wants to play as Baby Rosalina on Dry Dry Desert? Can Mario Kart Wii ever be topped? Yes, it introduced Baby Daisy. However, if Nintendo keeps making tracks such as Water Park, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Number 7.
Mario has always been one to defeat the odds, not only in his games, but in the business world. Some said that going back to 2D for the first time in 14 years wouldn't work for Mario, but it did. Some said that a 4-player 2D platformer wouldn't work at all, but Mario did it, and many followed. Some said after Super Mario 64 DS that there was no way that a 3D platformer could ever work on a handheld, but Mario did it. Essentially, Super Mario 3D World is a combination of the 3D platforming from Super Mario 3D Land and the 4-player home console capabilities of New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Does it work? Hell yes! One thing I love about Super Mario 3D World is that the world themes don't really matter as much as the level themes. One level you'll be climbing up a hill, another you'll be traveling through a swamp, another you'll be fighting boulders inside a volcano, and another you'll be in outer space. It also has some of the best unique power-ups in any Mario game. Hopefully they won't be unique for much longer though. Some of the levels though are kind of annoying when you have more than one player, and I mean in the poorly designed kind of way. Characters can go into bubbles if they need to, but it seems more like a band-aid than a solution. Of course, these quirky courses don't stop the game from being awesome when it counts, otherwise I wouldn't be here talking to you about it. Oh, and for the record, the order is Toad, Luigi, Mario, Rosalina, Peach. If it were up to me, the game would have been called Super Toad 3D World because Toad already dominates the 2 gameplay modes of the game, so why not? I should probably stop rambling and move on. I mean, this list isn't about the top 10 Toad games. If it were, I'd have to include Frogger. God damn it, what's wrong with me and these puns?
Number 6.
Mario Party is, for a standard explanation fails me, a very peculiar game series that is like nothing other except for its ripoffs. I mean, could you imagine trying to plan something like this? You'd take a board game, have everyone go once, and then spin a wheel that chooses mini-games that you made where the winner gets coins. Fortunately, these games exist, and spending a small amount of money on them is much easier. For me, it's difficult to order my favorite Mario Party games, but it's very easy to decide the best one, Mario Party 4. The mini-games are original, the board themes are enjoyable, the mini-mega system begs to be abused by a strategic mastermind, and that's really it. While Mario Party isn't easy to describe to a person who has never played it before, it can be quite easier to see the differences between the games, and this one has the best technical quality. Maybe someday I'll make a list for Mario Party games. Maybe someday.
Number 5.
Super Mario Bros. 3 is the first Mario game where levels started to become memorable. No more underground here, fortress there, room full of masks there. Each level had its own identity. I mean, who doesn't remember the boat? The world of giants? The shoe power-up? People who haven't played the game, that's who. The footage I show here is from Super Mario All-Stars for the Super Nintendo, but the original Super Mario Bros. 3 was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. If you ask people what their favorite NES game is, chances are they're likely to say this game. I'd personally disagree. Punch-Out all the way. But this is still an excellent title. One thing I don't like about the game, however, is once you beat a level, you have to play the entire game again if you ever want to play it again. Fortunately, that was fixed in Super Mario World.
Number 4.
Oh, speak of the devil, here it is right now. As a launch title, it proved what the Super Nintendo was capable of in comparison to its predecessor. An example of this is the extended memory, which allows the world to be interweaving. And of course, if you like the level so much, you could play it again. The cape still remains one of my favorite power-ups to this day. Hopefully it'll reappear in another mainstream Mario game. Of course, you can never forget the introduction of Tyrone Yoshisaur Munchakoopas, who not only rested Mario's feet and granted the music an extra layer, but also allowed the player another hit and a second jump. The Game Boy Advance version of Super Mario World has a few differences, but they really don't matter in the long run. Your mileage may vary about which one is better. I personally prefer the Game Boy Advance version because it did a bunch of graphical updates that I feel were a little necessary. Unlike Super Mario 64 and its portable counterpart, both versions of Super Mario World are great adventures to travel.
Number 3.
Oh, speak of the devil again. What I meant earlier is that I'm not the hugest fan of the DS version of Super Mario 64 because they spread the power-ups too thinly. Instead of creating new power-ups for Luigi, they gave him the invisibility cap, for example. In the original, Mario has all the power-ups you'll ever need, so there's no incessant switching. Anyways, if there's one word to describe Super Mario 64, it's creativity. Remember the world of giants from Super Mario Bros. 3? Well, what if there were an island that not only had giants, but could have you be the giant as well? It's hard to overstate how influential the first 3D platformer has been. Gabe Newell has been on record to say that Super Mario 64 convinced him that video games can be art. One of the most influential men in the video game industry has said that this game encouraged him to do what he does. If you have not played Super Mario 64 yet and that fails to convince you, I'm all out of cards. Seriously, how could you have enough interest in Mario to watch a video like this and have no motivation to play this game?
Number 2.
Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door has no right to be as entertaining as it is. The two-character system seems way outdated by this point, left to portable, less complex systems like the Game Boy Advance. But it works because they've added new mechanics such as stylish moves and an interactive audience. The chapters were also a lot more compelling than they were in Paper Mario. Instead of traveling to fortresses to obtain a star most of the times, you, spoiler alert, fought in a battle arena, had your body stolen, were stranded on an island, traveled on a train, and went to the moon. The first 2 stars, however, were, in fact, little more than just traveling to fortresses. The game did have quite a bit of backtracking, but you know what else it had? The Pit of 100 Trials. Forget what was behind the 1,000-year door, this was the true test of your mettle. I sincerely hope Nintendo makes another Paper Mario game like the first 2. Now for an honorable mention before we get to number 1. Mario Poops Out Sand. Does not exist, so we've got to give the title to New Super Mario Bros. Wii. One thing it does worse than Super Mario 3D World is the use of worlds. There's the typical sand, ice, etc. 2 things it does do better than Super Mario 3D World are the separation of people's lives and that there are a lot less chaotic multiplayer levels. In this game, however, the toads feel out of place. One of them is yellow and another is of a bluish hue. Gee, I wonder what Mario characters could replace them. All of what I say here can also be applied to New Super Mario Bros. U. In that game though, the Wii U gamepad assister does more harm than help. At least in my experience it does. Now, onward to number 1. Some of you may be surprised by my selection. Others, not so much.
Number 1.
Super Mario Sunshine is not perfect. The blue coins, the voice acting, and the terrible excuse for a story can all go away. But where it matters, the core gameplay, Sunshine is king. The game's controls are perfected to the point where you know it's your fault if you die. Well, either that, or all the difficult levels this game throws at you. The game's levels are as memorable as they are difficult. I'm sure we've all had nightmares about the giant sandbird, the giant manta ray, the sewer waterfall, or Corona Mountain at least once. It also introduced Cataquacks to the Mario canon, which has to be the cutest thing ever. I make it an aim to beat Super Mario Sunshine every summer when it's just too hot to go outside. What else can I do for one of my favorite video games of all time, and the best Mario game of all time?